Hey there, I'm Louie, and in this video I'm going to be showing you how to crochet a treasure chest. I actually use these treasure chests in my new tabletop game Stitched. It's a tabletop game where you crochet all your pieces from home. You can learn more about that at stitchedthegame.com. But in this video I'm going to be showing you how to crochet a treasure chest. We're also going to learn how to make a little key, some coins, and how to turn it into a mimic, which is essentially a monster version of the treasure chest. For this video, I'm going to be using the following materials. I'm using all worsted weight yarn in 100% cotton. I suggest using 100% cotton because if you use a thinner yarn or a less dense yarn, it might become pretty floppy. So try to use pretty dense yarn or crochet really tightly if you can to make really tight pieces so that it's not too floppy, you know. So I use 100% cotton worsted weight yarn for that reason. Because I'm using 100% cotton worsted weight yarn, I'm using a size G 4mm crochet hook. You're going to need the following colors of yarn. I'm using brown, gold, you'll need some white and pink if you want to make it into a mimic, and you'll need some gray yarn if you want to make a little gray key. Some other things that you might need. You'll definitely need a needle, a darning needle, preferably one with a crimped end so that it's easier to sew pieces together. You also might need some safety bead eyes. I use 6mm or 8mm safety bead eyes, and these ones are actually painted with fingernail polish to get them this kind of cool silvery color. You also can get some gold buttons instead of crocheting your gold. You can use gold buttons. If you got the kit for Club Crochet Pro this month, it will come with these buttons. If not, you can probably find them on Etsy. You might find them on Amazon. Just look for gold buttons. All right, well, without further ado, let's get hooking. And to start, before I get going actually, we need to talk about how this pattern is put together. So this pattern is actually constructed by attaching together 3 different parts for the top and 5 different parts for the bottom, and then combining everything with slip stitches. I'm going to go through what each of these parts are, and if you are looking in the written version of this pattern, there's a little chart that helps you out. So the first part is this arch. That's going to be part of the top, and we labeled it A on the chart. There's also the arch sides, which are these two half circles on the both sides of the arch here. Those are labeled B, specifically B1 and B2, but they're the exact same. For the bottom of the chest, you'll need to make the sides. Those are labeled C on the chart. These 2 sides here. And then there's also the front and the back. Those are labeled D. That's right here. And this back right here. And then there's the base, which is labeled E. There's also these locks right here. These are labeled F on the chart. This is just important because when we put everything together and start crocheting everything and sewing pieces together, it's really important to know which parts go where. It's kind of like a little crocheted IKEA furniture a little bit. Okay, well, without further ado, let's get actually hooking. We're going to start by making the arch here. You're going to start with our brown yarn. Okay, so for the arch, we're going to be using our brown yarn here. We're going to start with the slip knot. Now, for all of these pieces, you don't need to leave long ends because we're going to be just hiding these ends in and cutting them anyhow. So just make them nice and short. This is even a little bit long for me. For our arch, after we make our slip knot, we're going to chain 11. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11. Okay? Now, for the arch, we're going to start with row 1. We're going to skip the first chain, and we're going to be working into the back loops of these chains. So if you look close at this chain, you'll see we got a top loop, right? Let me get the needle, actually, to help explain this. We have the top loop right here. We have a bottom loop, which is right here. And then if you turn the piece around, you can see these little spines right here. These are the back loops. So we're going to be working into the back loops of the chains for pretty much all of the beginnings of this. And we're going to start in our second chain from the hook. So we're going to skip this first one right there, and we're going to get into that second one. You might need your nails here, so get your crochet hook up to that back chain right there and get it right under. And in each of those back chains, we're going to single crochet 1 all the way across. There's going to be 10 single crochets total. So let's go into our second chain right here. Whoop. If I can. There we go. So this part can take a little bit to get started. It takes a second to get all the way across. And if you can't get in it with your nail, you might need to use a needle to pry it open a little bit. The reason we're working into these back chains is because it really helps when we sew the entire thing together. It really makes it very clear where the stitches that we need to sew in are. Okay, so we're just coming to the end here. And again, there's 10 single crochets in this row. Okay, just a couple more. 9 and 10. Okay, so now when we get to the end here, we're going to turn our piece. Now it's going to have this little curve to it, so just kind of stretch out the curve. This is why I really like using cotton yarn, because it kind of holds its shape, kind of like clay a little bit. Okay, so for rows 2 through 10, that's 9 rows in a row. We're going to be doing this exact same thing. We're going to turn just like we did, and we're going to chain 1. And now working into the back loops only of the stitches, meaning these loops furthest from us, not under both, but only this one. We're going to single crochet into each stitch across. So we're just going to go across, and there should be 10 single crochets into each row. So we got 1, 2, 3, working only in those back loops, 4, 5, and you're going to notice that this is going to be the same way we're doing a lot of the pieces for this pattern. It's basically making a bunch of flat pieces and crocheting them together. Okay, so that's going to be the end of row 2. Now, just to show you what the repeat looks like, for row 3, we're going to turn, chain 1, and then again work into those. We're going to skip that chain, and we're going to work only in the back loops and just single crochet across. So I'm going to go ahead and make all of these rows. Again, you want 9 rows in a row of this turning piece, and in total you're going to have 10 rows. I'll show you after this cut how you can count your rows to make sure you have the right amount. Okay, so I'm at the end of our arch right here, and I just want to show how you can you can make sure you count it right. So if you turn it around here, you can see each one of these little sections, because we're working the back loops only, you can see those equal 2 rounds. So this is going to be row 1 and 2, row 2, 3 and 4, 5 and 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. And you should have 10 total. And this is what it looks like from the other side. Now when you've finished up your 10 rows, you want to cut your yarn. There we go. Again, you don't need it very long, and we're just going to do chain, 1 chain, like so, and just pull it tight. Now, when you finish each of these pieces, when you're crocheting with brown yarn at least, you need to hide in all these ends. So let me just show you how to hide those ends in. For the bottom, this is the first tail that we made. Let's go ahead and thread that on a needle. And you're going to go ahead and hide it just in the first single crochets that you made. So if we just turn it around here, you can just kind of hide it in. Take your needle and just kind of like get into, oopsies. There we go. Get into each of those stitches. Okay, and then once you get them through all those stitches, you can just pull that through. There we go, and you can see the yarn just pulled through, and then we can just pull it through and hide it in. And now when you have it hidden in, we can just cut the yarn really close. We don't need it at all. We just need it to be hidden in there. For the top, we'll do something, almost the exact same thing. We'll just thread the end on a needle, and we'll just go through the stitches along the top here. And again, you just need to go, you don't need to go through very many. You just need to go through and make, I don't know, 4, maybe 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. That's good. And then we'll just go ahead and pull that through. And again, that's just how we're going to hide all the pieces. If you're crocheting with brown yarn, that's probably, or that's definitely how you're going to hide the ends. And you want all the ends hidden for all the brown pieces. Okay, so that's how to make the arch. Next up, we're going to make the arch sides. That's going to be labeled B on the chart. And for the arch sides, you can use the chain 2 method or you can use the magic loop method. I'm going to be using the magic loop method by wrapping the yarn around my index finger 3 times, holding it kind of like a finger gun, and taking the tail end here, holding it in between my index and middle, or my ring and middle finger, and then pulling it in like that. Then we're going to take our crochet hook, go under the 2 front loops right there, and hook onto the 3rd one, and pull that under the first 2. Then we're going to yarn over the same end right here, and just pull through to make a chain, which will lock the piece, it in place, and you can pull it off of your index finger. All right, so for row 1 of the arch sides, we're going to work 5 single crochets into the second chain from the hook or into the magic loop. Of course, we're using the magic loop. So we're just going to single crochet 5 times. Now 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And now we can just pull this loop tight. I like to pull the tail end, which should pull in that inner circle. And then you want to grab that inner circle and pull it downwards, which should tighten the top loop. So you tighten that top loop, and now you can pull the tail to make sure that the other loop is tight. There we go. And now we're going to turn our piece. We're going to chain 1. And we're going to work an increase into each stitch around. Now there should be 5 stitches, so we're just going to we're going to skip our chain that we made, work into this first stitch right here, under both loops this time. You don't need to work only in the back loop. We're going to work an increase, so we're going to do 2 single crochets into that piece. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. You can see how it's kind of coming together. And then right here, the last one is going to be 9 and 10. 9 and 10. And like before, we're going to cut our yarn. You don't need a very long end. And then you can chain 1 and just go ahead and pull that all the way through. Well, I'll go ahead and hide these ends on the inside. And you want to make 2 of these. You only need 1 of the arch, but you do need 2 of these sides. Next up, we're going to be making the lock, the halves of the lock. So if you look at the front of our piece here, these pieces right there. So we've made this arch on the top and these 2 sides. Now we need to make these locks. So for that, we're going to be doing a magic loop method again. So wrap around our finger, pull that last one through, and then pull through a second time to create a chain. Get that off of our finger now. And we're going to go ahead and single crochet 3 times into either the second chain from the hook or into the magic loop. Of course, we're doing the magic loop again. So we're doing 3 single crochets. So 1, 2, and 3. And now we can pull this loop tight, just like how we did the first time. There we go. And you want to chain 1. And then we can cut the yarn. You want a little bit longer of an end this time, but again, you don't need it too long. Just that's long enough, and we can just pull it all the way through. You want to go ahead and make 2 of these lock halves. These are going to go on the top and the bottom piece. Okay, so now that I've hidden all the ends of our top half, we're going to, you don't need to hide the ends of the lock half, by the way, but now that we've hidden all these ends, we can go ahead and connect the top together. So this is going to be the really tricky part of the pattern. We're going to use our gold yarn for this, and we're going to make a slip knot. There we go. And we're going to take this is our top, our arch, and these are their side our sides, B and A. So we're going to go through the front loop of one of the sides. We're going to basically line them up like this. It's going to go just like that. And what we're going to do is we're going to take our crochet hook, go into the corner of your arch. Doesn't really matter which corner. I'm just going to go with this corner right here. And then we're going to work into the front loop only. So just this one. Right there. One furthest away. And we are going to take our slip knot. Pull it tight on the crochet hook. And we're just going to pull that through both of these together. There we go. Now we'll go into the next row right here. Okay, so next row on the arch. And then into the next front loop right there. And I know it just kind of came apart a little bit, but don't worry about that. That won't be a problem in just a second. And now we want to take our end here and make a slip knot. So we're going to yarn over, pull through that front loop and through the next row on the arch, just like that, to make a slip knot. We're going to keep going all the way up, connecting the pieces. So go into the next row. And it's kind of hard to tell where the next row piece is, but you can just basically follow where your crochet hook goes in. So I'm just going to go ahead and just place it into this arch right there. And you can kind of see how it just goes into that little end there. Go into the next front loop on the arch, yarn over, and do a slip knot. Okay, let me show you again in the next piece, or next row on our arch. Go into the next one right here. So you can kind of see it's going to be right there. Just, it's basically like the last single crochet hole. We go into that one, and then into the next loop on the arch, on the arch sides, and then again we're just going to slip knot it. Slip stitch it. Okay, just going to keep going up. There should be 10 of these total. Okay, so next one. And let me get maybe a better angle here. Here's the next one. Okay. Go ahead and keep slip stitching up it. Next one. And this is how you're going to connect the entire piece, actually. It gets a little bit more tricky when we do the bottom half, but it's not too tough. Okay, so you're going to see we're at the end here. We're going to do this last one. This one right there. Okay, now what we're going to do is, now that we've gone all the way up the end here, we can go across the front loops here. So this time we're going to go into both of them. So if you go into both of the single crochet stitches from the top of the arch here, just go into that like so. Okay, see how we're in just both the front loops there, and we're just going to slip stitch all the way across the front. You can see how it drastically turns to the right there. And again, don't forget you're going under both the front loops, or both the loops along the front of the arch here. Sorry I'm stumbling so much. It's just kind of hard to explain this piece a little bit. Okay, so this should be our last one right there. And now we're going to do the same thing across the other side of the arch. So we're going to go into our next row on the arch, and then into our first front loop on the other arch side right there, and go ahead and do a slip stitch. Okay, and then we'll just keep going up the other side now. 1, and there should again be, I think, 10. Okay, boop, next one, here's the next one, and then we just slip stitch it. I found that doing these slip stitches is a lot easier than sewing it all together. And it essentially sews it together, and you're actually just crocheting it together. Okay. I'm going to keep going up it. Whoop. This one's being a little bit more difficult with me. There we go. Ah, that's why I only pulled to the front. Got to go back a few. So basically what happened there was that I split the yarn. I hooked onto the yarn like so, like this. And when you only hook half of the yarn, it splits it and kind of screws it up. So make sure you're wrapped around the full strand of yarn, not just a piece of it. Okay, now we're going to be at the other side of our piece here. We're at our last stitch. We're going to go into that other corner of the arch there, and then into the last bit of our arch side. Go ahead and slip stitch just like so. And now we can just go across the other side of the chest, the back side here. And again, we're going to go under both of these loops, not just under the front one, but under both of them. Now these are the chains for me, so that means that it's a little bit harder for me to get under them. So you might need your nail, because I need my nail to go under both those loops. Okay, we're just going to keep going all the way across here. And you can see these ones are a little bit bunched together a little bit more, but I'll show you how we can make it look a little bit better after we're done here. Let's see, just a few more. This one, whoopsies. See, this is what I mean. It's kind of hard to get under both those loops. Needed my nail. It's because they're chain stitches, and chains can be kind of hard to work into when you're working under both of them. Okay, and the last one right here is going to be the same place where we went into in the beginning. Okay, and then to finish this up, we're just going to cut the yarn. Now you want to leave somewhat of a long end. That's probably good. Cut the yarn and just pull it all the way through. You can see how this arch kind of looks. Now, we want to take, actually we can just leave this end like so. We're going to end up going into our piece with it, but for right now we can just leave it. And we can tweak our piece. We can pull each of the ends so that they're a little bit more, we're just basically tweaking it so that it's in the shape that we want it to be. But there you go. That's how you make the top. Now the last part we want to do is we want to sew on this the lock half here. So to do that, I mean, it's pretty easy. You're just going to thread each of these ends and sew it on. So first we'll thread this side. We'll just place it right wherever we want it, right in the middle, like right like that, and just go into the stitch that's closest. Pull that through. And then we'll thread the other side of this lock. And we can go through, let's say, this piece right here. And we're just going to go up, I'm just going to go up like a row and simply just sew this on here. And we'll just go up this last one. Oops. The last one's being difficult with me. There we go. And finally, we'll go down through the same place we went into originally. And now you can double knot on the inside there. Let's just tweak it so it's not too weird. But you can double knot these two ends on the inside, or you can just hide them. I'm just going to go ahead and hide them on the inside of my chest here. Just going to go just a few stitches. Just hide the ends, just like how we did the brown pieces. But we're doing into the actual chest there. Let's just do a few more stitches. Okay, and we're going to take this other end, hide that piece in. There we go. And now we can cut these two ends pretty close on the inside. It shouldn't come apart. And we have our top half done. Now let's begin working on our bottom half, and then we'll sew it all together at the end. All right, so for the bottom half, we're going to be making the sides, the front, and the back, and also the bottom. But let's start by making the sides. Now the sides and the front are both made the exact same way, except for the front has more chains than the sides. So I'll explain that in just a second though. And they're both made almost the exact same way as the arch is. So we're going to start by making a slip knot. Well, let's do a side first. For a side, we're just going to chain 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And again, we're going to be working into these back loops. We'll skip the first chain and start into the second chain from the hook right here, only the back loops. And we'll just go ahead and single crochet all the way across till we get to the end. There should be 6 single crochets total. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and here is our 6th. And just like the other ones, we're just going to hide this end at the end of our piece. And we're just going to, for row 2, we're going to chain 1, turn our piece, and crochet across. We're going to single crochet across, only working into those back loops, the only ones furthest away right there. Okay? And just go ahead and single crochet all the way across. Again, there should be 6 single crochets. Okay. There we go. And you want to repeat that for 2 more rows. So for the bottoms, there's going to be only 4 rows total. So we did 1, 2. Now let's do 3. We'll just turn, chain 1, and work across our single crochets only in those back loops. And again, the other side is going to be the exact same way, but with more chains. I'll go over that in just a second. So this is row 3. Okay, turn, chain 1, and for our final row here, again, we're just single crocheting in these back loops all the way across. 2, 3, 4, 5, and here is 6. You know, pretty self-explanatory, pretty easy. And we'll just finish up by chaining 1, cut the yarn, and just pull it all the way through. And we'll hide this just like the other pieces were hidden. Now let's do the bottom, and I'll just get it started for you because it's essentially made the exact same way. We're going to make a slip knot, and this time we're going to chain 11 instead of 7. So chain 11. And you want to make 2 pieces of both sides and backs, back and front. So we're going to make 2 pieces that have 7 chains and then 6 single crochets, and then 2 pieces that have 11 chains. Okay, so let's just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11. And then we're going to work into these back loops and do 10 single crochets all the way across, working only into those back loops, just like the sides. And just like the sides, we're only going to do 4 rounds. So this is going to be round 1. At the end of this round, we'll chain 1, turn, work only in the back loops, across, just the exact same way, but only 4 rounds total. And make 2 of these. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and make these the other front and back, and then also the side, the secondary side, and then we'll come back and make the bottom of our piece. I'll be back in just a second. Okay, so the last part of the bottom of our chest that we want to make is the base, and it's just going to be very slightly different than making the sides and the top. We're going to start with a slip knot and chain 11. 1, 2, 3, 4. So this is going to be actually the exact same as the side. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11. And the beginning of this, I mean, is the exact same as the front and the back. We're going to be working into the back loops, skip our first chain, and just single crochet all the way across, working into the back loops of the chains. And there should be 10 single crochets for row 1 of the base. The base is labeled E, by the way, in the pattern, and as you might assume, is sewn onto the bottom of our chest. Okay, so that's going to be the end of row 1. We're going to go ahead and stretch that back out so it's straight. Now for row 2 through 6, so that's 5 more rows in a row. There's 6 rows total for the base. We're going to turn our piece and chain 1. And this time we're not going to be working into the back loops, but instead we're going to be working into both loops. And we're going to single crochet all the way across. So just working into both loops, single crochet into each stitch across. Okay, so just under both of those guys. And then the rest of the rows here, all 5 of the repeating rows are going to be get to the end, chain 1, turn, and single crochet across into both loops. Okay, so that's going to be the end of row 2. And again, we're going to row 6. So there are 6 rows total in the base. When we get to the very end, we'll chain 1, cut, and then hide in the end, just like how we have done on the sides. So I'll go ahead and finish up this base, and I'll be back in just a second. We can start putting everything together. Okay, so I have finished all of our sides. These are going to be the sides, the front and the back, and then the bottom. Now let me show you how to crochet them all together. So to start, you want to start with your gold yarn. And we're going to go ahead and make a slip knot, just like before. And we're going to start by connecting one of the front and the bottom. Okay, so these ones are actually going to be done in a different kind of pattern here than the top was. So we'll start by making a slip knot and then going through the corner of the front. So here's our front right here. So we just go through one of the corners. Let's go through this corner right here. And we're going to go under both these loops. And then you want to go into the corner of the bottom. And in this one, you only want to go into this front loop right there. Okay, just like that. And we're going to grab our slip knot and just pull it under the 2. And we're going to go ahead and slip stitch all the way across, connecting these 2. So we'll go under both of these loops, and then only under the front loop here, and just continually slip stitch all the way across to get to the other side. Boop, boop. And you can see how I'm just going into each one of these. And I want under both the loops on the front of our piece, and then only into the front loop here on the base. Okay. Okay, and here's our last one. We're going into both those front loops and then the chain on the side here. Whoop. Just the front loop of that last one right there. Okay, so that's going to connect all of the front and the bottom. I'm going to just pull those stitches, slip stitches out a little bit. I made them a little tighter than I wish I did. All right, so now we want to grab one of our sides, and we are going to connect the front piece here and the side piece. So what we're going to do is we're going to go into the next loop, next row on the front, and then the next row on one of the side pieces like that. Okay, because we're going to go ahead, let's actually do it the other way around. So I want these to look like it's connected, like so. Okay, so what I mean is you can see how the lines, we want the lines to match up. So we're going to go into the front loop and into the front loop of our side, or not our front loop, the row of our side like so. And we're just going to keep going up the side now, like so. Boom, go up to the next row, and then the next row of the side piece, and then the next row of the front, and then the next row of the side piece. Okay. And you'll see how it's like makes this little edge kind of thing. Don't worry about that too much though. And then here's going to be the last one. Go all the way up to the top of that row, up to the top of the side piece. There we go. And then, yeah, so that's going to connect the sides. Now this bottom part we're going to sew together in the next section, so don't worry about that. Okay, now we want to go across the top. So we're just going to go into each of these stitches across the top. Now you want to work under both these loops as you go across the top. Okay, not just the front, just both of them. Okay, there should be 10 stitches here. Okay, and now we're going to do the same thing. There we go, that's our last one. We're going to do the same thing all the way down to connect the other side of our piece. So first we'll go into the next, the bottom of the stitch right here, and then we'll take our next side piece and we'll connect to the first row like that. Okay, and we'll just connect those, make a slip knot, or make a slip stitch through those both, and then we'll just do the same thing down the side of our side. Next row, and then next row, row, and then our next row, and then finally let's go into this last row right here, and then here's the last row of our side. The last one's kind of being a little tricky with me. There we go. That's fine. We'll just go into the corner there. Boom, boom. And then we can cut the end of this yarn. You want it to be kind of long. And go ahead and just pull it all the way through. I'll show you how to sew these together. Now, because the last part we want to do for connecting the bottom is we want to sew together these pieces. So we're going to take the end here and take our darning needle, thread it on the end, and what we're going to do is we're going to go into the stitch that we just made. Just go straight into that, go in through the bottom here, and then into the next stitch and then into the next stitch on the bottom, or on the side. Okay, so we're going to connect it like so. Go up, and then go through the next stitch, and then through the next row. Okay, so you can kind of see what's going on here. Next row, and then next stitch. We're leaving a gap in between stitches, which we'll come back to. Next stitch, next row. Next row, next stitch. And we'll go ahead and go through, let's go ahead and go through the bottom. Actually, no. Now let's go back across. I'm sorry. I'm confusing myself. Now we're going to go back across through the same stitches so that we fill it up. See how this one's got all the stitches together? This one's missing. It's got like gaps. So we want to fill it back in. So we'll go in through the last place we went into, and then come out through last place on the bottom there. And then through the next stitch. See how we're filling in the other side. 2. And then we're going to go through on 2. Now this end part here, we want all these stitches to come on the inside. See how there's like kind of a hole there? So we're going to try to close that up. To do that, we'll go ahead and go through the corner here. And we might do some finagling. Let's go ahead and pop out through the corner. I'm going to actually go through this last chain because I don't like how it's going to be sticking out. The hard part about this, this is why I'm having such a difficult time explaining this pattern, is because the hard part about it is it kind of ends up different each time I do it. And I'm just going to go into the inside. That should pull that in. And take this other tail end and go through the same piece. Okay, so I'm just going through the corner of the side piece there. We're going to thread this part on the needle and just pull it through on the inside. Now we can double knot these two ends on the inside here, and you can hide it if you would like. Because our chest, you don't really see the inside of the chest here at all. I'm not going to hide them. I'm just going to go ahead and cut them really close and just leave them on the inside. There we go. And we can cut the ends. Okay. Again, you can hide them if you want, but I don't really care because you're never going to see that. Okay, so that's going to be how to connect the bottom, the first half of connecting the bottom. I'm just going and stretching it out, our stitches, giving them some looseness. And now we're going to connect the second half of this. So what we're going to do is we're essentially doing the exact same thing. We're going to take our bottom half here. Let's face it like this. We're going to take our gold yarn, make a slip knot, and it's essentially the exact same thing. We're going to go into the corner of our back piece right there, and then the front loop only of our bottom. And we'll go ahead and pull this slip knot through. Boop, boop. And then we'll go across the bottom part here. Go into both loops on the bottom. I'm sorry, I'm getting out of camera. Okay, so both loops on the bottom, and then through the front loop only. Both loops on the back, the front loop only on the bottom. Okay? Again, you want to pull this a little tighter, and we'll just slip knot under both of those. Boop. And we're just going to go across now. Both loops on the bottom, or on the back, front loop on the bottom. And again, we're just going to go all the way around it. both loops on the bottom. And if you have any questions, if I can explain this any better in the comments, just let me know. Go ahead and post a comment below. It might also help someone else, because I know this is really confusing, and it's really difficult for me to explain a lot of this. So I hope the video is helping, and let me know if I can make anything clearer for you. Okay, we're just coming across here. There we go. Just a few more. 1. Boo. And they should have the exact same amount. And here's the last one right here. Under both. Just the front loop of the bottom. You're going to need your nail quite a lot for this pattern. And now we're going to go up the side of the back here. So we're going to go into the first row right here, and then we're going to go into the first row of the side here. Okay, like that. And do the same thing. We're just going to slip stitch up it. 1, 2, 3. Here's our last one. 4. And now we're going to go across the top of the back. And just like the front, we're going to work into both loops. And see how that's gonna, you can see how the side is gonna look. And we're just gonna go across. 1, 2, should be 10. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and here is our 10th. And now we're going to go down. So we'll go into this one, then into the side here, and just match up the rows. 1, should be 4, 2, 3, and here's the end of it. 4. And now we're going to sew together the bottom, just like how we sewed together the bottom of the other half. So we'll cut our yarn. You want somewhat of a long end, but again, you don't need too long. Pull it on through, and we'll thread this onto a needle. And we're going to go into where we just did our slip stitch, then in through the bottom, and then we'll go through the next part of the bottom and through the side here. And we're just going to go across. Next stitch, next row, and they kind of just line up at this point. Next stitch, next row. Just keep on going across. If you want to connect this corner a little bit more, which I think I do, because this little thing is sticking out, and I don't really like that. So let's go ahead and go through that one, and we'll come back out through the same stitch, just so that we can like kind of hide it in there a little bit better. So that looks a little bit cleaner. And now we're just going to fill in just like how we did on the other side. Okay, so go through the same stitches just backwards. Boop, boop. See how I'm filling it in. See? Okay, just a couple more. And now this last bit, let's go ahead and keep this little circle thing closed by going through just the corner here, coming out through the inside, and then we'll take this other end and we'll go through the other corner to pull that other corner tighter and go through straight through the inside. And we can double knot these on the inside. So we kind of just made a little box without a top. All right. And just like the other side, we can just cut these. I'm not really worried about you seeing the inside here, so I'm just going to leave them in there. And you can kind of see, let's just go ahead and stretch this out so that it's more of a box. Keep it flat on the bottom. There you go. Now the last bit that you want to do for the bottom half here is that we want to sew on our other lock. So go ahead and choose which side you want the front, which side you want the back. It kind of doesn't really matter which side is the front, which side is back. So just go ahead and decide which side you like best and make that the front. I think I like this side. I think I like this side a little bit better. So we'll take our other lock half and go ahead and thread one of the ends. We'll just sew it on how we did the other side. We'll just place it somewhere in the middle there, and we'll go in like so, and then we'll do the same thing on the other side. Go through this side, thread that on a needle, and we'll just sew this on. 1, 2, and 3. There we go. Okay. We can double knot these on the inside. Actually, no, we don't need to double knot them. Let's hide them on the inside because this one's going to be actually noticeable. So let's go ahead and hide these ends instead of double knotting and cutting like we did in the corners. Make it a little bit cleaner since it's going to be seen. It's going to be seen. Okay. This other end. Just a couple stitches. There we go. I put the needle through before I threaded the end. Might make it a little bit easier to get the needle where you want it to be. There we go. And we'll just cut these ones nice and close. All right. So the final piece of this chest is that we want to connect the top and the bottom. And that's actually really pretty easy. What we're going to do is we're going to thread the longer end of the piece that's still left over on the top. Thread that onto a needle. And I'm just going to go back into our piece where we did our last slip stitch right there. Go back into that. Oops. There we go. And I'm going to come back up through the front of that first end right there. Okay, just the front loop of the slip stitch. And we're going to line this up with our bottom. And we're going to go through the front of the parallel stitch right like that. And let's go through the same one just to get it started. And then we're just going to keep lining it up and just go through the front ones. 1 and 2. And we're just going to go ahead and work our way across. All the way across, and then we're going to work our way across backwards as well to go back around. So we're going to kind of double it up. Pretty simple. Okay. And now we'll just work backwards. I'm going to go through one more time through that last one. And then I'm going to work back across, doing the exact same thing. This is going to create kind of like a hinge. Okay. And to finish up, we're going to go through the bottom. Kind of see how that's a hinge there. See how it's holding it all together. You can open it and close it. And now to finish up, let's double knot these two ends on the inside. 1. If you want, actually, before we do that, it's gonna, if we double knot it just straight up with this last end here, it's gonna kind of pull it over. So instead, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna thread this last end here. And that's just the way that it got stitched together this time. I'm just gonna go through our side here so that it doesn't do that, and then double knot on the inside. Let's see how that does it. 1, yeah, that's much better. And 2. Okay, so that way it doesn't like pull it too far away that we don't want it to go. And usually how this ends up working is it doesn't close all the way. It stays just slightly open so that you can kind of see what's going on inside of it. If you want to sew together it together a little bit more, it'll stay closed a little bit better. You can also, I think this might be kind of cool, thread an end here together, like take a little piece and sew it on so that it's these two pieces together, and then you could just pull it tighter, pull this end tighter to close it. It just could be a kind of a cool way to make certain that it's closed if you don't want it to stay slightly open. And we'll take these ends, and I'm just going to go ahead and hide them on the inside. Like so. There's one end, and the other one will just go in through, I don't know, through these ones. Doesn't really matter, as long as they're hidden and in the back. There we go. Okay, so now we can cut these two ends on the inside. Just go ahead and hide them. And the main part of our chest is done. It's not staying upright right now because it doesn't have anything in it and it's slightly opened. Well, actually, it's staying upright pretty well. Let's go ahead and tweak everything so that it's a good shape that we want it to be. If you really want it to stay in like a perfect box, maybe put a piece of cardboard on the bottom there, or you can try glue, which will keep it sturdy, or you can sew in some pipe cleaners into each of these edges, and that will give it a little bit more sturdiness if you are worried about that. Okay, so next up, we want to turn it into a mimic. Well, before we turn it into a mimic, let's actually, let's turn it into a mimic first. So first we want to make our teeth. And you're going to want to make 4 of these. I'm going to take some white yarn. And the teeth are pretty simple. We're going to make a slip knot. And we'll chain 2, 1 and 2, and working into the back loop only of the second chain from the hook right there. Okay, so the back loop of that second chain, we're going to do a slip stitch. Pull it tight, do a slip stitch. I like to pinch the end there so that it's nice and sharp tooth. And then we could just cut the yarn and chain 1 and pull it all the way through. Okay, so that's going to be how to make a teeth. And you want to make 4 of these teeth if you're going to make the mimic version. Next up, let's make the tongue. For the tongue, we want our pink yarn here. And we can start by chaining 11. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11. And again, we're working only in these back loops. And we want to start from the second chain from the hook. We'll start by single crocheting 1 into the second chain from the hook. There we go. That's going to create just a little, the end of our tongue there. And now we want to do half double crochets in the rest of these back loops. So for half double crochet, we're going to yarn over, then go into the next back loop, pull a loop through, then yarn over and pull through all 3 loops on the hook. And we're going to do that all the way up across. There should be 9 half double crochets after our first single crochet. 2, 3, and this is going to make it have a little bit of a curve to it naturally. We can kind of get that curve out of the way if we'd like to, but I kind of like the curve to it. I'll show you it in just a second. Just come to the end of this here tongue. See how it's like curving in. Okay, one more. There we go. And to finish up the tongue here, we're going to cut the yarn. We'll do a single chain and just pull it through. And now we can sew our teeth and our tongue on. Let me go ahead and make you can see how the tongue is, because this is cotton yarn, it's really moldable. I can put it in any kind of shape that I want. We're going to go ahead and sew this into our mouth like so. It's going to go like that, and then our teeth will go 2 on the top and then 2 on the bottom, and then we'll add eyes. But let me go ahead and make our other three more teeth, and then I'll be back in just a second to show you how to sew on the mouth on the inside. Okay, so I've made all of our pieces. Now let's sew them in. We're going to start with the tongue. So I like having these ends on the front. So this is the top of it and this is the bottom. But you can do it the other way around if you like. We'll go ahead and thread one of these ends here. And on the inside of the front of our chest, see these chains right here? We want to put our tongue into these chains like that. Okay, so that's one end, and then we'll do the other end just a few stitches away. Let's do 4 stitches away. Like that. There we go. Oops. Let's do a better job at threading that on a needle. There we go. Just pull those through. And then you want to pull it tight enough so that the knots kind of pull through those chains. Okay, so like if you see here, the knots get pulled through like that. Okay, let's do the other end. There we go. Both these knots are through. Try that other one again, and we got undone. And then you want to double knot these on the inside. So just 1 and 2. And we don't really need to hide these ends because you're not going to be looking in the mouth too much when it's a mimic. And you can see how you can just hang it over like that. Okay, so that's how you can add a tongue. Next, we can add our teeth. I'll just show you how to sew one of the teeth on, and then I'll just sew the rest of them on off camera. You want the teeth curved in, so the teeth will have a natural curve to them. See how it's kind of curving that way? So you want them curving in on the inside. I like to thread the inside of the curve first onto the needle, and then I'll go through. See how along the top and the bottom you'll have these pieces, these stitches, these V's. So I like to go in through just the front of these V's, right, like that. Pretty much go to the corner. You can pretty much decide where you want the tooth, but just like how we did the tongue, you're going to want these threads of the teeth all the way, the knots of the teeth pulled all the way through. So make sure that the knots are under where you're pulling through. See how there we go. See how the knot goes through? Let's do the other side. There we go. And you'll see how that will, once we double knot it on the inside. And for the teeth, you do want to hide the ends. So we'll double knot on the inside first. 1 and 2. And then we'll go ahead and thread these in. Hide these in our mouth here. Go into some of these stitches here. Just a couple. And you want to do that for each of the teeth in each corner of the mouth. Okay, let's do the other way around. For the other tooth. Now the mouth won't close all the way if you add the teeth and stuff. It's a little bit more difficult to keep the treasure chest closed, so heads up, because the teeth get in the way and stuff. I'm having such a difficult time threading ends on needles. There we go. Let's try this again. There we go. We'll just hide this end in. And I'll go ahead and add the rest of our teeth. Let's go ahead and cut the ends nice and close. That other one could have been a little closer. There we go. So I'll go ahead and add the rest of our teeth. Here's what the first one looks like though. You might want to tweak it so that it's closed a little bit. Kind of see how it's coming together. And then I'll add the eyes. But let me go ahead and sew on the rest of our teeth first. Okay, so I went ahead and sewed on all of our teeth here. You can see how they look, kind of cool. And the last thing I want to do is add some eyes. Now I have these ones already pre-painted, but you might want to paint them with some, I would use fingernail polish because it's easier to paint with. And I'm just going to go ahead, I have these cool red ones, so I'll go ahead and go through, let's go a little bit lower. I like to make them just right along the base, really close to the teeth maybe. Right there. Yeah, that's pretty good. Like that. Yeah, that'll look cool. Let's do the other one. Right on the bottom right there. And yeah, right in the corners. Yeah, that looks, oh wow, that looks really cool. Okay, and then we're going to take the ends here. You can put them on either way. You can put them on front. Let's try, I did them this way last time, so let's see what happens when I put the ends on the other way this time. I have a feeling it'll make it much more flat. Yeah, it looks pretty good. Okay, let's do it that way. Oh, I need a different back end. This one's not working for me. So 1 second. There's one right here. It's really hard to get those on. There we go. Hurting my nails, but that's okay. All right. So our piece is just about done. The last things that we want to add are some coins and some, and maybe a key. There we go. So first off, let's put this guy to the side. Let's make some coins. Coins are really easy to crochet, and I said this before, but if you don't, I think it's cooler to have these golden coins. These are really, they're buttons, which I thought was, kind of fun because these are all crocheted anyhow. So gold buttons are pretty cool. But if you want to crochet your coins, that's no problem. If you don't have access to golden buttons or whatever, really easy. We'll just make a magic loop method. And we're going to pull that through. And for each coin, you're just going to work 5 single crochets into the second chain from the hook or into the magic loop method. We're using the magic loop method, so we're going to single crochet 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Just like how we did the side arches, actually. We do the exact same beginning. And we'll just pull this tighter. Okay. And then to finish up the coin, all we have to do is slip stitch into the first single crochet we made. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This one right here. Just slip stitch into that one. See how it makes a little circle. We can cut the yarn, pull through, and I'll show you how to hide this end. Take our needle, thread it on the end that you just cut, and we're going to go through the back of the next stitch that we made right here. Okay, so back of the next stitch, and then straight through where that end is coming through, right here. Straight through that, and then we could just hide it somewhere on the inside. So we'll just put it through a few stitches. Like that. And just pull it. You want to pull it tight, but not too tight. This will mimic the stitches there. You see how it pulls in like that. And we could just cut these ends. You want to cut this end. You can hide this end a little bit better before you cut it. That might be a good idea so it doesn't come undone by accident. So let's just go ahead and hide it into just a few stitches. One, let's do like 2 like that. Thread that on the needle. We'll just go ahead and pull that in, and we can cut that end close too. And there you go. That's going to be how you will make coins. Pretty not bad, right? It's pretty easy. They take not very long to make, so you can just make a bunch of coins if you want to add to your chest. And the last thing I want to teach you how to make is how to make a key. So let's get our place open and free here, and then I'll show you how to make this key. Okay, so we're going to use our gray yarn here. We're going to start by making a slip knot. Get a crochet hook in there, and we're going to start by chaining 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now if you want to make your key longer, or a bigger hole for your key, you want to chain this a little bit longer if you want. Now we're going to slip stitch into the first chain that we made right here. We're just going to do a slip stitch into that to form a ring. You see how that's going to form just the littlest tiniest ring. Okay, so for I guess not really round one, there's not really rounds in this because it's all kind of made in one piece. But for our first section, we're going to single crochet 9 times into the center of this ring. So we're going to go into the center of this ring, yarn over and pull a loop through, and we're going to single crochet around this ring 9 times. Now you want this knot to be on the left side of your first single crochet. So before you finish your first single crochet, see I've pulled my first loop through, I want to pull this knot onto the left side so that it's around the outside of this. And this is going to be to hide this knot, and we'll finish up that first single crochet. So we want to do 9 single crochets now. Our second single crochet we're going to do around that knot. So we're going to pull that second one through and kind of work around the knot. And we're just going to work around this tail end for the rest of our stitches here. So we got 1, 2, let's do 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Let's pull this end just over to the side. We don't need it. 8, and here's going to be 9. And we'll finish this up by slip stitching into this first single crochet that we made right here. We're just going to work a slip stitch into that one. Okay, now I'm going to make what I call the base chains. Let's actually start by, let's cut that end right there. We don't need it anyhow. So we're going to do what I call the base chains of our piece. You might want to make this, this is how you can make your key longer or shorter. We're going to just chain 7 for my example though. So we're going to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. And the reason I call these the base chains is because when I talk about working into our base chains, it'll be a little bit easier. It'll make sense in just a second. Okay, so we're going to be working into the back loops of the chains. So if you look at the chains, you got, the top loop, we got the bottom loop, and then if you turn it upside down here, you can see you got these little spinal things that are called back loops. So we want to skip our first back loop of the chain, and we want to get into the second one right here, right there, and we just want to do a slip stitch into that second chain. Okay, so just one slip stitch, and this is going to be the tip of our key. Okay. Now we want to chain 3, 1, 2, and 3. And now if you want to make your little prongs of your key, this is what we're making right now. If you want to make these longer, then chain more than 3. So we got chain 3. Now we want to work into the back loops. We'll skip the first chain that we just made and start in our second one right here. Again, we're working into only these back loops. And we'll just do a slip stitch into these 2 back loops right here. 1, and here's our second one. 2. Okay, so that's going to be the first prong there. Now working into the base chains, okay, so into our next base chain. So this is our first base chain right there. So working to the next one right there, we're just going to slip stitch 1 into that. Okay, there's our first prong. Now we're going to make another one of these prongs. We're going to chain 3. 1, 2, and 3. We'll skip our first chain, work into the back loop of our second chain right here. Need your nail to get into that. There we go. And we'll just do a slip stitch into that one. So it's the same thing as the last one. We'll do one slip stitch. We'll go do another slip stitch into the next one right there. Okay, and that'll make our second prong. You see how it's kind of coming together now. And now we want to be working back into our base chains. We have 4 more. We got 1, 2, 3, and then 4 is going to be the one connecting it right there. And we want to do a slip stitch into each one of those. You want to skip the one that big hole right there. Okay, so go into this next base chain, and we do 1, and here's the next one. Make sure you get under all of the bits of that chain. There's 2, there's 3, and this is the last one right here. 4. Okay. See how our keys coming together. This part you might want to tweak a little bit so that it's straighter on. This is why I like using cotton yarn, is because it's easier to tweak like that. And then to finish this key up, we're just going to slip stitch into the next stitch on our piece right here. Slip stitch into that one. And we can cut the yarn. You don't need much of an end there. Go ahead and pull this all the way through, and we're going to hide the end. So we're going to thread this onto a needle. And go into the back of the next stitch right here. Okay, so into the back of the next one. And then straight through the center of where you just came out of. And then we're just going to hide this on the inside a little bit. And let's just go ahead and hide it into just a couple of these. There we go. And we'll cut the end nice and close. And we have our finished key. We might want to tweak it a little bit. I like to pinch the end there. Make sure it's tweaked right. But there you go. You got a little tiny itty bitty key. Okay, well there we go. We filled them up with our coins, and we have our mimic treasure chest now and our little key. Thank you so much for crocheting this along with me. If you like this video, make sure to like down below. If you like my patterns and you're not already a Club Crochet member or Patreon or Louie's Loops Patreon supporter, please consider doing that. You can learn more about that at clubcrochet.com/treasure. And yeah, thank you so much for making this pattern with me. Oops. And if you haven't checked it out yet, check out my tabletop game Stitched. That's at stitchedthegame.com. Thanks again for watching. Pasta la pizza and happy hooking. Bye.